So, a few years ago, I read a book called On the Shortness of Life by Seneca, and it was one of the most profound books that I've ever read, honestly. And it made me look at my life just a little bit differently than I had previously. So, if you've been part of my journey with me already, then you know that I had a multi-million dollar business that I operated with my husband, and we sold that in 2023. And one of the reasons that we sold it was because it didn't align with the type of life that we wanted to create. He was gone like 2 weeks out of every single month. We barely saw each other. We had two young kids. He almost never saw them. And one of the last straws actually was during COVID when he went over to Germany and came back. And, my oldest and I both got mysteriously sick. And we kind of were at this point where we just were tired of traveling. COVID forced us to kind of slow down and forced us all, I think, as a country into a bit of retirement. And it was during this period that I read on Seneca's On the Shortness of Life, and it made me just ask the question about why do we wait until we're 60 or 70 years old to retire? Time is not something that is replaceable. The only replaceable thing the only irreplaceable thing we actually have in life is time. That is our greatest asset. Yet we treat it like it's more valuable to be busy and waste it on trivial things. And so we just decided to take a hard look at everything that we were doing. And we realized that, money is replaceable and we're not going to get any of our time back. Um, During this time, I also read a separate book by Clayton Christensen. Clayton Christensen. Most of you probably know him for The Inventor's Dilemma, but I actually read How You Measure Your Life, and it made me start to question, you know, what was my purpose in life? What was the impact that I actually wanted to create? And so, as this all kind of came to a head and we were forced into this faux retirement period because we were B2B with big box retailers, we decided to more intentionally slow down what we were doing and be, more purposeful in how we spend our time and who we spend it with. And so it was during that period, we made the decision to find some buyers for this particular business, and that took a little bit of time. This was not a magic, flip the switch and we were able to just transform our lives. It was about a 2-year process. We had to find a buyer. You had to go through due diligence. If you've never been through that, it is not an easy or quick process. And then we made the decision to actually hit the road with our family. At first, it was just going to be for a year, and then it was 2 years, and now, it's kind of indefinite, and we'll see when it happens and where it takes us. Seneca's main premise and theory within his book is that, life isn't actually too short. It's just we squander it away. We spend way too much time on things that are not joyful or they don't teach us in some way to elevate our own standing and help us learn. We spend it with people who don't truly value our existence or our time with them. And we act like busyness is some sort of badge that we should be wearing at all times. And for some reason, we always wait until we're 50 or 60 or 70 to realize the joy and the adventure and that overall sense of purpose that we want to have in life. We think that retirement is some grand place that we're going to reach someday. But the truth is that someday may never come for us. And this is something that as founders and entrepreneurs, we tend to do as well. We tend to value cash over time. And so we keep, wearing our busyness as a badge, and we're willing to learn all of the subjects in order to make everything happen instead of, making small investments in ways to really progress our business forward. And one of those comes up very often in the need to hire someone to perform those back end admin tasks and all the things that I would consider my 2X or my 80% in the Pareto principle, those things that I really should get off my plate. We keep performing those in an effort to save a dollar here and a dollar there, because again, we put the value of cash over that of time. But what if we didn't wait? What if we started to view our time as a limited resource and started to spend it where we could really move the needle on our business forward? What if we didn't wait to really realize our purpose and pursue our impact in the world? What if we started to view time as having a much greater value than the cash or other resources? So when my husband and I made the intentional decision to slow down and hit the road with our kids for a year, 2 years, whenever, we decided we wanted to both work harder and play harder, but we wanted our work to be much more intentionally designed. It wasn't now built around achieving some generic revenue goal. that would give us a sense of wealth or false purpose, if you will. It was now really built around creating an impact with others that, would make us live into our own sense of purpose. So for me, that was working with small business owners and founders. It's something I've done now for about 15 years, off and on. And so this was something I really wanted to get back to and to help others, really avoid many of the mistakes I made. And for him, he is a retired Marine and he had never had the chance to really live into this creative space that he felt pulled to really explore. And then together as a family unit, we wanted to be much more intentional in how we educated our kids. We had had some rough experiences with public education. Even despite being in one of the better schools in North Carolina. And we just decided that, we wanted to collectively as a unit get out and explore while we all still could together. We know that there's going to be a period of time coming at some point in the future that our kids are not going to want to hang out with us anymore. And so my husband and I want to exploit it for as long as we can right now. And so, while we were going through all of this process and kind of rethinking how we spend our time, it was then that I sort of started reading Clayton Christensen's book and started really re-examining, the purpose of my life. It wasn't money or titles or a professional career or some amount of success that was ever going to help me feel fulfilled in my life. What I really wanted and valued was to help others realize their dreams, to build key relationships, to make sure that I had a really great relationship with each of my kids and that I was creating an impact outside of myself that was much bigger than myself. And so I started to really think about how I was going to approach Veriscale and design it in a way that wasn't driven by the wrong things. It wasn't driven by any sort of external factor, but instead it was driven by, yes, giving me the time and freedom that I really wanted, but also helping to create an impact with other small business owners and founders outside of myself. Now, this didn't mean that I wanted to do everything for myself. In fact, I am a big proponent of learning and knowledge and education. And it's probably one of the reasons I enjoy entrepreneurship so much is because you have to learn so many things and you get the opportunity to explore various areas of both life and business, two of my greatest passions. And so I very often regularly 10x my own life and 10x my role within my business, which means that I have to get rid of the 80% that is holding me back. Again, because I go back to the beginning, because I consider my time so valuable. I only want to spend it doing the things that I know is going to really create impact outside of me and drive the needle forward with my business, with my relationships, and with my time here on this planet. And so all those tasks that I feel like I've mastered that are really in the back end admin phase, those are things that, there's somebody else's 10x version of themselves. And so I want to offload those to someone else who A is probably more skilled at them. And B, who see those as their own opportunity for growth or their own area of impact. And so I regularly just, choose to spend my time a little bit differently so that I can continue to grow now and well into the future. Seneca actually talks about in his book that, one of the greatest investments you can make is actually spending time with some of the old philosophers. I actually wholeheartedly agree. It's one of the reasons I have read him. More recently, I actually am spending a lot of time with some of our older presidents. As we've traveled around, we visited several different presidential houses and museums. And so I've picked up reading some of their biographies in an effort to learn some of their leadership skills from a time when we didn't have quite so much information inundating us at all times. But that ability to create that space and that time for myself to really continue to grow is super important to me. And it should be to you as a founder as well. Again, I'm just going to go back to the premise of you need to start to value your time more than your cash. And when you start to do that, you're actually going to find you end up generating more cash in the long run. Anything here that, I really want you to take away from all of this is there are really three key books here that I highly recommend. One is Seneca's On the Shortness of Life. One is Clayton Christensen's How Will You Measure Your Life? And actually, the third is 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. All are amazing, and I highly recommend them as great reads as a founder and an entrepreneur. Um, but, more than that, I think you should start to ask yourself, like, what if you didn't wait for retirement? What if you didn't wait for the perfect amount of income to hit your business to go all in? What if you didn't wait for life to slow down a little bit before you pursued your dreams? What if you started to make the small shifts today that would help you to get there? Um, I would love to hear, your thoughts on any of this, or if you've read the book, I would absolutely welcome conversations with any of you around this subject matter. But, if you like insights like this on occasion, or you want to learn about client experience and other key business matters, then, hit that subscribe button or go ahead and join my free community on School. It's called Your $1 Million Plus Business Plan. And I hope to see you in there.